In the past, words were used as tools for expression but are now being used as weapons. Weapons to manipulate people covertly by influencing their thoughts and behaviors through their vocabulary. The Oxford English Dictionary does 4 revisions annually and has added 2,000 words so far just this year alone. What's crackin'? And welcome back to Unleashed Minds. I'm your host as always, Uncle Ram. And in today's episode, we're going to be going over war on words, why words keep changing. Now, going forward, I'm going to be sprinkling in videos here and there about the way specific words are being created and used in society today. I know, sounds super boring, but trust me when I tell you it's not. Well, I guess it could be. I think anyone who wants to unleash their mind would find a ton of value in discovering how the culture and media are creating words to manipulate our subconscious. Hence our title, War on Words, and how it directly affects us on an everyday basis, whether we realize it or not. My hope is that if you don't already know how to decode it, then you at least have a better understanding by the end of this video. As they say, awareness is key. I'm covering this topic because everywhere I turn, whether it's people I encounter in the streets, my associates and friends, social media, YouTube videos, etc., I hear a lot of discontinuity between the words they use and the way they choose to live their lives. So what they say compared to their actions don't align, and the funny part's that they have no idea that it's actually happening. I know it may not sound like much, but it's a problem because they're not only misrepresenting themselves, but it also affects their ability to properly read others. The key benefit to a person unleashing their mind is gaining the ability to adapt, because that's when we're truly observing our surroundings and analyzing how they affect us both directly and indirectly. Accordingly, we need to cover the most vital portion of this concept to attain the fundamental understanding that you must have in order to fully encapsulate the idea in your mind. We all need to better understand why words matter way more than we might have originally thought. No, I don't mean this within the context of the oversensitive, child-minded snowflake adults who are over-emotional, entitled, easily offended, and unable to deal with opposing opinions. No, I mean this to say that most people have to speak in order to think. Strange, right? Did you realize that only a small percentage of people can divide themselves into multiple versions of themselves in their heads and have a full-blown discussion with each holding different viewpoints and be able to articulate those thoughts into spoken word? Mouthful. Psychology professor Dr. Russell T. Holbert has been studying what he calls inner experience for more than 40 years and has written 6 books on the topic. In October of 2011, Dr. Holbert titled a post on Psychology Today as "Not everyone conducts inner speech. Inner speech is frequent, but not for everyone." In the article, he states, "Consider inner speech. Subjects experience themselves as inwardly talking to themselves in 26% of all samples, but there were large individual differences. Some subjects never experienced inner speech. Other subjects experienced inner speech in as many as 75% of their samples. The median percentage across subjects was 20%. As a result of this study, and others we have conducted, I'm confident that inner speech is a robust phenomenon. If you use a proper method, there's little doubt about whether or not inner speech is occurring at any given moment. And I'm confident about the individual differences. Some people talk to themselves a lot, some never, some occasionally. Have you ever wondered why therapists are paid mainly to just sit and listen to you speak? Clinical psychologists have found that the overwhelming majority are able to understand and process their thoughts once they've been spoken out loud. So the main and overarching concept is that since most people don't have an internal monologue, word choice becomes very important. Now that you have a little bit of background information, this leads us to my first point regarding the war on words taking place within society today, and it's because keywords are being used as identifiers of ideology. What do I mean? The use of certain words makes it so that people within the same or similar belief-based groups and tribes can easily recognize one another. Just like a Jersey accent lets others know a person is from the East Coast, or a Southern twang from Texas, the use of specific words would suggest the primary environment a person is in. If someone were to say something distasteful to another, and they respond, "I rebuke that," what would you assume about the person since rebuke isn't a commonly used word within the English dialect? They're probably of the Christian faith since it's a word used regularly within the church. Conversely, you could tell a person's not a Christian if they say, "Oh my God," or "Jesus Christ," since the use of God's name in vain is like nails on a chalkboard to a Christian, while non-believers hear these words as simple phrases. Here's another. If you gave a short answer to someone and they responded, "Unpack that," what would you assume about them? You're right if you'd assume they were a douchebag, yes, but you'd also be right to think they're either a business person or an executive. The average person just doesn't use that style of jargon in everyday language. How about this one? If a person says, "A woman's right to choose," what would you assume about their belief system? Give up? They're most likely liberal-leaning when it comes to political or social philosophy. On the flip side, if a person said abortion, it's a good indicator that their social philosophy is conservative-leaning, even though the phrase "a woman's right to choose" is within the same context as abortion, yet both sides use different words which actually reflect their beliefs. How about if someone wants you to stop what you're doing briefly by saying, "Time out"? They probably play sports or video games. But you see where I'm going with this. Okay, now let me take a quick second to stop, or time out, and address the not all Karens. Not all, Karen. No, not all. We're speaking in generalities here, or else nothing would ever get accomplished. Also, I understand that some may claim that what I'm saying is stereotyping. My response would be that you're extremely ignorant if that's the case. And naive. And you're probably a hope strategist on top of that. The point here is, like the example of the accent, if you start paying closer attention to people's word choices, then you can gain a much quicker and better understanding of their belief systems, as by design, since choice words are being created, redefined, and adopted for a specific purpose. The next point to bring attention to regarding the war on words within society today is that words are being used to propagate agendas. To propagate an agenda, in simpler terms, is to spread influential plans. When tribal communities want to set the stage in preparation for bigger plans in the future, their number one technique is to covertly spread their influential plans by use of key terminology. I don't want this video to stray away and become focused on examples, but I can't give this point proper justice without substantiating my claim. So, a quick example of a tribal community propagating an agenda is by the adoption of the expression toxic masculinity. While the phrase wasn't actually created by the group you would naturally assume, they understood the emotional effects that this particular combination of words would have on a traumatized society. So, what these groups do is create massive campaigns by flooding the news, social media, advertisements, and even movies with the expression to get society emotionally charged and primed for the next stage of their grand scheme, which in this case was the final phase of the feminization of testosterone producers. Again, let's not focus too much on the example I gave, but instead on the greater idea that these dogmatic and tribal communities infiltrate the societal narrative by using suggestive words and phrases, whether they're true or not, in order to get emotionally traumatized people to react to and integrate the language into their talking points. The best way to know when a word that's representing a propagated agenda has saturated the culture is when the definition is so ambiguous that most people don't even know the actual definition and will confidently explain their own definition of the word based on how they feel about it. Let's bring this point home. In June of 2022, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson took the oaths of office to become the 104th Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. During one of her confirmation hearings, she was asked to define the word woman.
Do you interpret Justice Ginsburg's meaning of men and women as male and female?
Again, because I don't know the case, I don't know how I interpret it. I need to read the whole thing.
Okay. Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No,
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context.
So
I'm not a
the
biologist.
meaning of the word woman is so unclear and controversial that you can't give me a definition?
Senator, in my work as a judge, what I do is I address disputes. If there's a dispute about a definition, people make arguments, and I look at the law and I decide. So I'm not.
The fact that you can't give me a straight answer about something as fundamental as what a woman is underscores the dangers of the kind of progressive education that we are hearing about.
What you just witnessed was the result of a hostile takeover campaign of a definition which had the momentum to reach the absolute highest level of the judicial branch in America. Not even a Supreme Court justice can refute the weaponization of terminology because, as we saw, the agenda became greater than even the court itself.
Combo breaker!
And this ties perfectly into the third and final point surrounding the war on words within society today, which is the complete assimilation of the group's keywords and phrases into the culture. Assimilation is the process of taking in and fully understanding information or ideas. So in this case, meaning the conditioning and normalizing of the chosen words as selected by the tribal members. What you'll see when this happens is that people will no longer debate the meaning of the word nor the validity of the expression. It'll just be universally accepted and completely integrated into regular, everyday vocabulary to where you'll hear it multiple times per day and not even notice most of the times. But there's a catch. Assimilation of new words and definitions must be maintained, and this is done by compelling speech, which is a direct violation of our First Amendment right of the U.S. Constitution. And how does an indoctrinated tribe of dogmatic followers compel speech, you wonder? Simple. By shaming language and guilt. You'll be labeled with words that end in ist, ism, phobic, and any other absurd character assassination branding in order to make you comply by force. This character assassination tactic does two other things to serve their overall purpose as well. The names they call people are red flag identifiers of ideology to indicate that you're an enemy of their group, and since they're always nebulous terms, It makes it so that any repercussions are unactionable, meaning they're names that are classified as opinions so that they can't be sued for libel or slander. Keep in mind that the terms are very well known within the culture and can easily and quickly destroy a person on a social level by crushing their reputation. It's difficult to explain complicated politics to the average person, so they figured out a way to bypass needing to do so. These people will even go as far as to call your place of employment to get you fired or get you canceled on social media. The most interesting part of it all is that the assimilation is legitimized when the term is officially added to the dictionary or the definition gets changed. The Oxford English Dictionary does 4 revisions annually and has added 2,000 words so far just this year. As you can see here, the latest update was in September 2020 with over 650 new words, senses, and sub-entries added. If we continue down to the remainder of the 2022 updates, June had nearly 700 added, and March had nearly 700 added as well for a total of 2,050. Now, let's go back to the example of Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson and her inability to define the word woman. If we look at the word in the Oxford English Dictionary, we can see that the definition was recently changed to state an adult female human being. Okay. Now that's a strange way to define the word because now we need to know what a female is in order to understand. So let's see how female is defined. But keep in mind, the Oxford English Dictionary requires a $100 annual subscription for access to its entire library, and I'm not being funded by the videos yet, so that'll have to wait. Speaking of which, if you're getting value from the video, be sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing in order to be part of the Ram Squad. So since we don't have access to the Oxford English Dictionary, then we can go to the Oxford Learner's Dictionary instead, which defines the word female as being a woman or a girl. Okay, so this is a repeat of a strange definition where we have to find the meaning of another word in order to understand. This means we need to know what a woman is. So let's go back to the definition of a woman. Wait, the word woman will just send us back to the definition of female, right? This is called a circular definition, which is a description that uses the term being defined as part of the description or assumes that the term or terms being described are already known. So, in Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's defense, how could she possibly define a word that has no definition? She also understood that she had to signal the Identifier of Ideology to the administration in control at that time, or else she wouldn't be elected as a US justice. Now, that's some compelled speech with consequences if I've ever seen it. I would label this scenario as the world's greatest execution of a hostile takeover of one of the most widely used words in the English language. See, just imagine the wide-scale effects it could potentially have going forward. For instance, if we stay within the confines of the Supreme Court scenario, the 19th Amendment deals with women's right to vote. Now, would you say that amendment is necessary if we can't even define the word woman? Now you're thinking. In a different part of the world, the Chinese government is way more direct in their methodology of deploying and upholding its assimilation tactics. They're currently undergoing the construction of a social credit system as a way of steering its citizens into the behavior of its choice. I'll leave a link in the description box because it's definitely an interesting read if you're curious. Everyone I know, at some point in their lives, has been made to feel guilty for using a term that others didn't like, shamed for not using language that others preferred, or pressured into using words that they didn't even understand. And this is unquestionably the easiest way to identify when an agenda is being forced onto society. The war on words, and the reason why words keep changing, is a concept that the greater society doesn't understand because regular, good people assume that the natural ebb and flow of language and communication is taking place as it has since the history of mankind. Why would we think greater agendas are occurring behind the scenes if we're not paying attention because we're preoccupied with the difficulties of our everyday lives? What we fail to realize is that our belief systems are being impacted by our speech unknowingly, which is the entire purpose of these tribal groups. What do I mean by this? The groups recognize that most people have to speak in order to articulate their thoughts, which also means that people will be pulling from their normal, everyday vocabulary in order to express those ideas. To push further, if our everyday language contains words that have been conditioned into us by our environment, then we know that our words express our thoughts express our beliefs, and our beliefs are most likely to be expressed through our actions. These groups are experts at this. There are a lot of times, though, where thoughts and actions clash and there's discontinuity. This small gap is a window of opportunity where a person's own self-awareness would be able to recognize that they've been indoctrinated and take the necessary steps to counteract it. But, as we know, only a chosen few who've decided to unleash their minds will have the tools to do so. And that means you if you're watching this video.
And that's you.
So what do you guys think? Did I get it wrong? What's your opinion? Do you have any ridiculous experiences with terminology and phrases? Leave a comment below and let me know. Also, you can find all the sources for this episode linked in the description box below. If you want to be part of the Ram Squad, then make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit the bell notifications so that you're alerted whenever I drop a new video. If you'd like insight on what I'm doing personally, feel free to follow me on Instagram at UncleRamMPU. I appreciate you watching the video and be sure to share it with anyone who doesn't understand the impact on the way words keep changing. I'll catch you later.